Howdy, friends, and howdy, Saudis. We're back at it once again. Now I know that white fellow that thinks he's black, what's his name, Snickers or Mars Bar or M&M's or whatever he used to call himself. He said, "Look who's back! Guess who's back?" or something like that, and said, "Tell a friend." Well, you can tell a shit skin, my friends, that we're back again in the sandbox. We're gonna be doing it, and I know that you might not have had. I mean, you might have thought you had enough freedom, but think again because we're back. All right, everybody. Chris, do you have any opening words for going back to the sandbox?
Yes, welcome everybody to another episode of the Gulag Café. Very, very special guests tonight. We are both clones of George W. Bush. We are back. We are back, baby.
That's right. Praise Jewish God.
Now, of course, it's very, very important that everyone understands that gulags are against freedom and that the threat to the United States may come not in the form of a tasty mushroom dug out of the trash by a commissar, but in fact in a mushroom cloud. And it is for that reason that we will not be going to liberate the poor oppressed people of the UK, but instead we will be waging yet another war in the Middle East. This is the most important thing in America today. Not the people dying of fentanyl, not the immigration crisis, definitely not the Federal Reserve and inflation. The most important thing in America is and has always been the nation of Israel and dealing with her enemies. And I just want to say how much I love the nation of Israel. I would not be the man that I was today without them. And I'm not just talking about that circumcision that I got done, neither. No, they have lifted and emboldened me, as they say, he who blesses the nation of Israel is blessed, and he who curses the nation of Israel is cursed, which makes them sound a bit like a mafia. You're not supposed to say that. I'm going to get myself canceled. Anyway, welcome to the Gulag Cafe tonight. It's, full on America here. In America, of course, you poor people in the UK, you're still going to be eating rats and bugs. Don't worry. Maybe we'll get around to helping you guys and the rest of the people in America once the entire of the Middle East crisis has been resolved. And hey, just don't point out that we're the ones starting the crisis over here. Crisis, as the Chinese say, it's just another word for opportunity. Thank you very much.
That's well said, Brother GW. I appreciate your kind sermon tonight. So, yes, we are here to talk about tonight. We all know that the absolute shit show that we have seen this entire week. All of the Never Trumpers on the right, all of the Nothing Ever Happens crew, they all feel vindicated about all of the negativity they've been talking about MAGA and Trump and all that. And honestly, they are warranted in saying all of that. Chris and I have warned all along that do not throw your lot in with Trump and what's going on because he's let us down before. But if he does good things, we like the good things. Well, this week, him and everybody in the government have been doing bad things that we do not like. Very anti-white, anti-Western things. And speaking of anti-white, you guys know that I love the Go Free method. I love the lexicon. And tonight, Judeo-Christianity, I believe, is the primary cluster of mimetic pathogens in the anti-white narrative that propagates acceptance of the forever wars. Now, I don't know if Jason Kunis himself has talked about this or not, but I consider everything about the Schofield Bible, all of this Zionist Christian bullshit that has been pumped into us for 80 years in America. I believe that these are anti-white mean pathogens. Now, you can argue all day long you want about the origins of Christianity. I don't care about that. Christianity is and has been for a very long time the primary religious expression of the white race. And I think that all of this Zionism, Jews for Jesus, Judeo-Christian horseshit is absolutely 100% premeditated government anti-white mind poison just to try to make us all comfortable with what they want to do anyway, which is get nice, good old boys blown up for Israel, sent to the sandbox, just to perpetuate this ridiculous machine of usury to make the petrodollar the #1 currency in the world. Yes, that makes the Jews in Israel and the Zionists very happy. It makes the rich Jewish bankers very happy. But let us not forget, it makes a lot of non-Jewish anti-white people very rich and happy as well. Which brings me to my point. Tonight, I will be saying the Jews and Israel and Judaism and poo-pooing the Jews quite a bit. So as a disclaimer, when I say that tonight, I'm not talking about every Jewish person in the world. I'm talking about Judaism as a front. Judaism as a thing and the Jews as a general label, like I'm saying the Muslims, right? Because when you talk about the Muslims, you're talking about Muslim problems, rape gangs and aggression and warlords and bad imams and all this other shit. Those are Muslim problems. So we talk about them from the Muslim camp. The Muslims did this. This is what the Muslims think. This is why the Muslims have a problem. That's how I'll be speaking about the Jews tonight before anybody loses their fucking shit at me. It's like, oh, you're an anti-Semite. You just hate Jews. No, I hate evil Jews. I hate anti-white Jews and neocon shills. They can be of any race. They can also, a lot of Christians are more Zionist than they are anything else. That's their religion, is Zionism, the Judeo-Christian bullshit. So when I talk about the Jews tonight, I'm talking about the ADL. I'm talking about the psycho-Talmudists. I'm talking about the evil neocon Jews in our government. I'm talking about the evil Jewish shills and the fellow whites that say one thing out of one side of their mouth to try to use every belief you have to trick you and trap you into wanting to prostrate yourself at the feet of this Zionist war machine. So when I talk about the Jews tonight being the bad guys, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about regular Jewy P. McJewerton that just lives a regular life and wants to send his kid to the best shul that he can in New York City. I'm not talking about Hasids. I'm not talking about, non-participant atheist Jews. I'm not talking about Jews for Jesus that have given up on all that Zionist shit. I'm not talking about any of them. We're talking about the evils of Jewry internationally that is directly tied to the U.S. war machine and the state of Israel. So, Chris, is there anything you want to preface tonight to get out of the way before we start?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of like to, point out that I think the best way to sort of characterize a lot of what's going on is essentially sort of a Jewish mafia, right? And in the same way that, if you had an Italian mafia, the way it operated and what it believed and its tenets would be, influenced by, being Italian, the Jewish mafia is very the same. And so, you've got to sort of like understand a bit about Judaism to understand like what they're, doing. And a lot of what they're doing seems really ridiculous. And, unless you understand a bit about, apocalyptic Judaism and Chabad and the Kabbalah, and then it all makes sense. But it is still completely retarded. And I also like to point out that they're not shy about killing their own people, right? Like, how many Jews are going to die as a result of this war with Iran? They don't care, right?
They don't care.
They'll be fine, right? Like they'll all
just like the Judeo-Christian whites in America. They don't give a fucking shit how many white Christians have to die on the altar of Moloch. They don't care. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, right? Like, so we're gonna focus a bit on this interview that Tucker Carlson did with Ted Cruz, because this is an amazing interview. Ted Cruz basically sort of goes completely mask off as not only a Christian Zionist, but as a sort of huge AIPAC shill. He states that the reason he got into Congress, right, was to promote the state of Israel. And that's not.
Well, I wonder if all the people who voted for him to put him in office knew that.
The strange thing is that Tucker actually pushes back on this. Now, of course, Ted Cruz tries the whole why are you asking so many questions about the Jews? Are you some kind of anti-Semite? To which Tucker replies quite rightly, look, we're about to go to war with Persia, right? Like if there was ever a time to ask these kinds of questions, right? Like, how much are you beholden to a foreign government? Now is the time. And
because it's not like Iraq. Trying to take and siege Iran, totally different game. The topography, the numbers, the connections that it has. Like, it's not like going to Iraq and getting rid of Saddam, which, again, now that I know what I know, I see what that was. But logistically and militarily speaking, this is an entire, exponentially more difficult and complicated. And it would cost a lot of lives and a lot of money.
No, actually, I've got a theory on how they're going to prosecute this, actually, as a matter of fact, right? Iran, for quite a while, has been quite a defensive country because of the terrain, right? It's a very, very mountainous country, right? Like arguably even more so than Afghanistan. But that sort of mountainous area is sort of more in the center of the country, right? And the oil fields and stuff are around the edge. I think the plan basically is to seize all the oil fields, seize all the areas outside of this mountain fortress, and then just starve them all to death, basically, right? Which is one of the reasons why they want to make sure to remove all of the nuclear power stations so that Iran will not actually have power, right? Because if Iran could make their own uranium and they had nuclear power plants, then theoretically they could just survive, right, in the center of Iran, even cut off from the rest of the world, sort of North Korea-like, for ages. And obviously that won't do. So I'm working on a script on this. This is quite a sort of complicated thing. But one of the other things that I noticed when studying this is how similar all of this is to the lead up to the war in Iraq. Now, those of our viewers who are, not old heads like us, right, may not remember the run up to the war in Iraq, right, which is why we were both doing George W. Bush impersonations, but it is literally one-to-one. They are using exactly the same playbook, right? My weapons of mass destruction.
The same meme pathogens that they used on us before.
Yep, my weapons of mass destruction, my weapons inspectors, right? Like, oh my God, my mushroom cloud over New York City. I was digging through like some of George W.'s old
and
speeches.
Don't forget the religious angle, Chris. Because back it was huge. We're fighting God's war. We're fighting the evil. We got to go fight Satan in the sandbox and all this shit. Like, absolutely emotional manipulation, mimetic pathogens to talk a bunch of bell curve, doe-eyed, young, ignorant, rural white people to go die for Israel and die for the petrodollar.
Yep. Now, what's curious about this iteration is the speed with which it has been ramped up, right? The Iraq War, particularly the second Iraq War, right, like was clearly very well prepared, right? Even before 9/11, right? They'd been like sort of preparing the ground and all this kind of like stuff, right? This was spun up very, very quickly, right? And because it is happening so quickly, it's much easier to see sort of the sudden narrative turns that everyone has had to make in order to enable this, right? And I think this is actually making this whole endeavor much sloppier. Now, so far, they have not been able to convince Trump to, start doing airstrikes on Iran. I believe Steve Bannon was actually instrumental in telling him to hold off. The Israelis, of course, are apoplectic over this, essentially believing that it is America's job to defend them every single time they get in trouble. Now, the Israelis
because these Jews are so entitled and psychotically demanding. It's just they literally think that our job is to fight and die for them whenever they snap their fingers or stomp their feet.
Basically, yes. And coming on the back of what happened in Gaza, having dented their not only sort of their credibility but their international reputation so hard, I'm not sure that it's going to work this time. I mean, I'm kind of curious. It's kind of interesting watching them use exactly the same playbook from last time, right? But it's not 2003 now, right? Nope. Many things have changed since 2003, right? Back in 2003, CNN was like the most watched platform, right? And
don't forget, the people they had to talk into going to war and dying, they didn't grow up on the internet.
That's right.
But white boys today did. They know. Like, they know. That's why so many of the people I know in this area who have been lifelong military families, their white sons didn't join the military because together, the children and the sons and the fathers, they learned. They learned from 9/11. And they learned from Iraq. They learned from all the shit that came after that. And because of all the things that we have learned now about Zionism and JFK and 9/11 and how all this garbage ties together, there's not a lot of incentive for white boys around here to join the military anymore.
And look, and this is a massive travesty, right? Like not just for the American armed forces, but also for other Western armed forces, right? The goal, the purpose of a country's armed forces should be to protect that country, not fly halfway around the world to like, start bombing the crap out of like people you've never met or like random goat herders, right? This concept has been so lost to history because of these wars of adventure, right? Of which there are so many, right? I mean, look at the UK and Ukraine. The UK prosecuted the Crimean War. And often when you examine the motivations behind this, it does come back to territory and capital and all these kinds of games of empire and all this kind of like other stuff, right? I'm not saying that, there's not some games of empire to be played, but like realistically speaking, who was Iran like actually like, really hurting in America at this point, right? It also shouldn't be forgotten that one of the ways that they engineer this is to basically erase history. And when you're talking about Iran, this is particularly pertinent, right? It was the Americans, the English, that overthrew Mossadegh and then installed the Shah, right? who ruled brutally for 25 years as basically an absolute monarch, right? In terrible conditions, until he started getting too uppity and started doing interviews in the US talking about Jewish control of America. And then all of a sudden he was yeeted out and the revolution happened, right?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah, Pepperidge Farm. So it's not a stretch to claim that from the Iranian perspective, right? The British and the Americans have been meddling in their country for literally forever.
Specifically at the behest of the Jews, their mortal enemies.
Yeah, basically, right? So
and don't forget another important part of history. The Jews of today, I'm just going to go ahead and say this now. The Jews of today, they are not the Hebrews of the Bible. They are not Judea of the Bible. They are a hodgepodge collection of ethnic people that come from different racial groups, and they're all banded together with this Talmudic insanity. And on top of that, the country Israel that was created was done so forcibly by forcibly removing, with British and United States forces, the Muslims who lived there. That did not sit right with the Muslims of that region.
And the Christians who lived there. Let's not forget.
And don't forget that too. Yeah, some of the Christians who lived there.
Right? Like, lived in Jerusalem. I mean, look, this is just so retarded on its face. All of this stuff is like massively retarded. And, this Ted Cruz interview really exposed. People are starting to ask very serious questions about the role that Israel plays in American politics, right?
Especially when you go to the White House or the halls of Congress and there's "I stand with Israel" everywhere. You see more goddamn Stars of David than you do American flags.
Yeah. Well, that should not be allowed, right? Like, and the way this works is there's always this sort of shifting kind of thing, right? Is Israel a nation? Is it a religion? Is it an ethnicity? Right? Like, and as soon as like they take flack in one direction, they just suddenly shift to another. Oh no, it's not, it's not.
It's none of those things. It's a mafia organization.
And Tucker in his interview navigates this very, very well. He's clearly heard all of these arguments before. Don't you know, Yiz, that the modern state of Israel was in fact mentioned in Genesis? Amazingly, right? 2,000 years ago, the Bible was talking about the modern state of Israel. This is the kind of crap that Christian Zionists.
And also, don't forget Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz at one point was considered a top debater in Ivy League universities. Zionism rots the brain.
Yeah, I think it does, and I think the reason why it does is the amount of logical contradictions that you have to internalize in order to make it work damages the rest of your cognitive function, right? Because you have a whole bunch of these contradictions that are basically sacred and cannot be touched or questioned, and then they leak out into other areas. I think this has happened to James Lindsay and to Jordan Peterson as well. Lindsay's been going like freaking insane recently. He's on a mission to get Oren McIntyre, and all he does now is post Oren McIntyre clips. It's highly.
I assume Lindsay is a Zio shield.
Oh yes, he very much. If not wanting to glass Iran is woke right now. I mean, apparently,
of course it is, because everything is.
Because of course it is, right? Like, being against adventurous wars in the Middle East is
because
very...
not wanting white people to go die for Israel in the sandbox is, of course, against the anti-white narrative. It's against the anti-white moral imperative, and everything that is against that is the Satan in the narrative.
It's woke right, yes.
Yeah,
I hope we don't have any woke rights in the chat. I hope you're all, happy to sign up and send your sons to die for and of course your money as well, right? All of America's money. You don't need it, right? It's not like Americans need the money. You're a very rich country, right? You could just give it all, to defend Israel, right? Like, what's the problem? Like, really?
Okay, well, but let me talk a bit here before we get into the video clips and laugh at Ted Cruz and talk about that shit. The reason why I claim that Judeo-Christian, this concept, is basically, it is when Jason discussing the Go Free method and the Go Free ideas, the methodology on his channel, he talks about the anti-white moral imperative. Where does a moral imperative come from? It comes from your beliefs. Where do your beliefs come from? They come from your religion. This is why I think that the United States government the Zioshills, all these neocons. This goes hand in hand with the moral majority that was created in the 1970s. You had to create a something that people would believe in the United States that would make them rationalize all of the inconsistencies and things that go against their sensibilities and sense of self-preservation, right? Sending your sons and daughters off around the world to get blown up for foreigners, that should be something that sounds absolutely insane that no one would be willing to do, right? Well, you have all the war propaganda that started back around World War II. So then they added more on top of that. And I think that Judeo-Christianity was engineered by Zionist Jews and Zionist Christians, non-Jews, like racially non-Jewish, specifically as the solidifying, the calcifying agent in the anti-white moral order. They needed that religious element. So like what these evil Jews and these evil non-Jewish Zioshills do, they use your nature, your beliefs against you. They judo flip you, pun intended. Judo, get it? They judo flip your beliefs in the Christian God, in the Bible. They trick you. They manipulate you. They finagle you to make you think that, oh, well, if I believe in God, it says Israel in the Bible, and I'm a dumb, ignorant Christian that don't know no better. So yeah, I'm going to listen to these politicians and these men on TV and these people, that have been manipulated from birth that are behind the pulpit in my church. They're telling me that Israel and these psycho Zionist Jews that will spit on me for being a Christian when I go to Israel, the ones that hate me and call me goyim and think that it's okay to abuse me and rape my daughters and shit. Yeah, we need to go die for these people because these are God's chosen people. Like, this is the core religious element of the anti-white moral imperative. And so
actually,
I don't know.
It goes back like way back to like the 16th century. If there are any Christians listening, I would highly recommend the Stone Choir episode on the Septuagint.
Yeah. All of this is definitely not just from 50 or 60 years.
No. It's just insane how far it goes back, right? And how many
I'm talking about in the American
like
war machine zeitgeist, in the political American sphere. This is the core element of the anti-white narrative, of the anti-white moral imperative, I should say, is Judeo-Christianity. This lie, this collection of mean pathogens that's been forced on all of us in everything. And so that that will be on display. The psychological, spiritual damage that does to someone, you will see when we watch these Ted Cruz clips.
Shall we get to the clips?
If you like, I have the first one loaded already.
Okay, hang on, wait. Let me in Smallin. I think I've got a couple of tweets beforehand. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Friends don't let friends die for Israel. That's some fresh OC straight from
I made that
straight from the Yiz oven. Very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I quite liked this one since we were like talking about Bush too. Trump has not pushed the button yet, and I'm quite intrigued by this, right? Like, obviously all the Nick Fuentes types would be like, well, of course he'd push the button immediately. Trump hasn't. And I think Trump would be quite a hard guy to push around, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't want to be the dude to have to go into the White House and threaten Trump and say, you better fucking do this or else. Trump would be like, do you know who you're speaking to? You better lower your voice when you're talking to me. I've got friends in the mafia. You don't want to wind up in a New York river with concrete shoes, bucko. I'll get the CIA right on your ass, right? Like,
I mean, he does have some similarities to JFK.
Now, this is a great tweet from Oron. The same people who warned you about the dangers of Christian nationalism are now also saying that their foreign policy is dictated by a novel interpretation of Christian eschatology, which is absolutely true, right? And of course,
I hate this little troll. This is the one who plagiarized Jason's book I told you about.
Always with World War II. Every single time, right? Nothing has ever happened since World War II. It must always be World War II, right? Why should the US enter World War II? The Nazis pose us no threat. Are you seriously comparing the Iranians to like post-Weimar Germany? See, right, really?
Well, I mean, I agree with the first question in the first statement. That's true.
Well, I'm not sure that the Iranian mullahs are misunderstood. I just don't think it's our fucking problem, right? Like, if everything in the West was going like 100% peachy keen, right, and like, you know, I don't know, had a bit of spare money and we need to keep the army in check. But look, at the moment, right, things in the West are really bad, right? We have very, very serious problems that we need to deal with, right? We do not have enough bandwidth to like enter another war, right? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether it like actually happens. Okay, right. So first clip. This is I think this is Tucker Carlson quizzing Ted Cruz.
Now, remember, I have to load my window. We can't hear it.
Yeah, I know. I've
Okay,
just got them all loaded up in order so I can keep track.
Okay, all right.
This is Tucker quizzing Ted Cruz on a few basic facts about Iran, the country that he wants to go to war with.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah. Yep, let's go.
Right. How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? How many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables. Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government. Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant? Because if you don't know anything about the country... I didn't say I don't know anything about the country. What's the ethnic mix of Iran? They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran. You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims... You don't know anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad. You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump? Yes, I do. Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that... We're carrying out military strikes today. You said Israel was. Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them. Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity. No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them. You just said we were. We are supporting Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening. Okay.
Well, well. Wiki, how about that?
Oh, well, I'm just a senator. I'm not an intelligence analyst, right? Like, I mean, look, okay. I mean, people on Twitter are like, you know, these gotcha questions, but these are relatively basic questions, right? That you could pick up if you just sort of read the Wikipedia page on Iran. It's not like, you know, you'd have to do like, you know, a 2-year course in like, you know, Iranian history. Like, oh my God. I mean, man, Tucker is on fire. My God, I love this dude, honestly, right? Any comments on this clip? Yes.
The thing that really stands out in my mind is when knowing what I know about Ted Cruz. Supposedly he was a top tier debater back in the Ivy League university days of his 25, 30 years ago, right? When he gets grilled by Tucker Carlson, and when Tucker says, "But you want to topple the government of this country, and you don't know anything about Iran," he sounds like an 8-year-old saying, no, you. When he goes, "No, you don't know anything about Iran."
Yeah.
It's the argument of a child. It's so frustrating to see these mentally fried Zio-shills that puppet this massive war machine, that are components, I should say, of this massive war machine, that are the spokespersons of the people they're supposed to represent in America, and their brains are fucking gone. Just gone.
Arguably, right, when you make talking about a subject, you know, illegal or, you know, highly unpopular, you never hone your arguments. Right? Like, you know, you're never having to argue with other people about them,
That's
right?
Why I said earlier, Zionism rots the brain.
Your abilities atrophy, right? Like, when was the last time any conversation like this has taken place, right, in front of the American public, right? Between two, like, establishment figures in this way, right?
I can't recall.
up until this point, right? Like criticizing Israel has been like, you're like one of those Nick Fuentes types or something. You know,
to be fair, I do recall an interview around either before or after the year 2000 with Buchanan when he talked about the dangers of being Israel first instead of America first. I do remember that.
Oh, is that why James Lindsay hates Pat Buchanan so much?
Yeah, probably.
I was wondering, right?
And Pat Buchanan's not like a far right anti-Semite type of guy. He's never.
I heard he was. Therefore, he must be.
No,
right?
no. Like, what I mean is he's never been one of the Jews are evil, blah, blah blah. He's not like that. He just says that Jews and Christians are different, and Israel and the United States should be separate countries. There shouldn't be this Israel first situation with because he didn't like that.
Sounds like anti-Semitism to me. Is goodness me, right? You can't go around saying that kind of like stuff. Now, the reason why I started with that clip is that they're rolling out all of the same big guns that they used with Iraq. If you could play this clip, this is Cruz basically parroting George W. Bush, saying that the mushroom cloud, right, over LA.
To get to America. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, I think the odds are unacceptably high that we would find out with a mushroom cloud over New York City or Los Angeles or Tel Aviv in Israel. And
again, to remind you, this exact same rhetoric was on television in the early aughts. I remember. I watched it. I watched the whole televised war. That's the first thing that really got me into news when I was in my 20s. Was the Iraq War. And this is the kind of rhetoric that went on.
And we have the clip. This is some OC from me, actually, right? I painstakingly tracked this clip down and edited it out because, much like you, Years, I remember very specifically seeing this on TV.
Close Saddam Hussein is to developing a nuclear weapon.
Just a second, and I will share it.
One of the things about 9/11 that was like really, really struck me was that when it happened at first, everyone had great sympathy for the Americans, right? And then they turned around and attacked Afghanistan, and everyone was like, okay, I guess I can see this. And then they turned around and they attacked Iraq, and everybody lost sympathy for the Americans at that point, right? And if you remember the time, Americans that were traveling the world, they put like Canadian flags on their backpacks and stuff because everyone was so pissed off in America for starting this shit and constantly using 9/11 as an excuse, even though it was very, very clear that it had nothing to do with 9/11.
And looking back at it, that's very Jewish Zionist behavior, because you can go all the way back to the USS Liberty with this shit. Like, this is Jewish instigation. Same thing over and over again. And this is what people hate, because they can tell it's disingenuous. They can tell they're being bullied. They can tell it's mafioso behavior. It's not noble, guardian, righteous, stoic, warrior behavior. It's mafia behavior. It's criminal, psycho behavior.
And there's a trick that I'm seeing them use this again, in my opinion, right? So they did this with Hussein, right? With Saddam Hussein. They said, hand over bin Laden or we're going to go to war with you. Well, bin Laden wasn't in Iraq, right? Nope. So you say, unless you do a thing that it is impossible for you to do, we're going to go to war with you, right? And this is
it's like the mafia goons coming to your place of business and saying, hey, you know how you owe us 20 grand? You have to pay us that tonight in 6 hours or we're going to break your legs. They know you can't do it. They just want to break your legs to make a point.
Yeah.
It's the same shit.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one. This is the George W. Bush.
Yep.
Here we go. Mushroom cloud clip.
Many people have asked how close Saddam Hussein is to developing a nuclear weapon. Well, we don't know exactly, and that's the problem. Before the Gulf War, the best intelligence indicated that Iraq was 8 to 10 years away from developing a nuclear weapon. After the war, international inspectors learned that the regime had been much closer. The regime in Iraq would likely have possessed a nuclear weapon no later than 1993. The inspectors discovered that Iraq had an advanced nuclear weapons development program, had a design for a workable nuclear weapon, and was pursuing several different methods of enriching uranium for a bomb. Before being barred from Iraq in 1998, the International Atomic Energy Agency dismantled extensive nuclear weapons-related facilities, including 3 uranium enrichment sites. That same year, information from a high-ranking Iraqi nuclear engineer who had defected revealed that despite his public promises, Saddam Hussein had ordered his nuclear program to continue. The evidence indicates that Iraq is reconstituting its nuclear weapons program. Saddam Hussein has held numerous meetings with Iraqi nuclear scientists, a group he calls his nuclear mujahideen, his nuclear holy warriors. Satellite photographs reveal that Iraq is rebuilding facilities at sites that have been part of its nuclear program in the past. Iraq has attempted to purchase high-strength aluminum tubes and other equipment needed for gas centrifuges, which are used to enrich uranium for nuclear weapons. If the Iraqi regime is able to produce, buy, or steal an amount of highly enriched uranium a little larger than a single softball, it could have a nuclear weapon in less than a year. And if we allow that to happen, a terrible line would be crossed. Saddam Hussein would be in a position to blackmail anyone who opposes his aggression. He would be in a position to dominate the Middle East. He would be in a position to threaten America. And Saddam Hussein would be in a position to pass nuclear technology to terrorists. Some citizens wonder, after 11 years of living with this problem, why do we need to confront it now? And there's a reason. We have experienced the horror of September the 11th. We have seen that those who hate America are willing to crash airplanes into buildings full of innocent people. Our enemies would be no less willing. In fact, they would be eager to use biological or chemical or a nuclear weapon. Knowing these realities, America must not ignore the threat gathering against us. Facing clear evidence of peril, we cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
Now, before we move away from this, I want you to hear something again.
Things full of innocent people. Our enemies would be no less willing. In fact, they would be eager to use biological or chemical or a nuclear weapon.
Wait, I skipped it.
Pass nuclear technology to terrorists.
Here it is.
Some citizens wonder, after 11 years of living with this problem, why do we need to confront it now? And there's a reason. We have experienced the horror of September the 11th. We have seen that those who hate America are willing to crash airplanes into buildings full of innocent people.
I want you to think about that, knowing what we know now about 9/11. Mossad, Zionist, Jews, Rumsfeld, the missing money, the dancing Israelis, USS Liberty, what they did to JFK. It wasn't Saddam and Osama bin Laden that did 9/11. We know who it was. And now he just said the people who did that will be willing to do it again. He knows. Yeah, he knows. And he's still a Zio-shill. That's how deep this evil is in our government and in the people who lead us to these horrible forever wars. These anti-white pieces of shit, these satanic monsters, they know it. They know the truth, and they still push it. This lie, this Judeo-Christian cancer, this anti-white mind poison. He knows. He knows. He knew then, I should say, but he still said that anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting that they don't have like a big false flag. Again, this is what I mean about it being rushed, right? Like, I don't know whether, maybe October 7th was supposed to be the 9/11 of the time, right? I mean, they were trying to basically say that, it was equivalent to 9/11, but
they did say that. A lot of people said that.
It just didn't take, right, in the same way.
Yeah.
This whole version just seems very rushed, like they're trying to speed run the whole thing, and it doesn't seem to be working as well, right?
The competency crisis.
Yeah, quite possibly, right?
So I demand better
money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
This next clip is again Tucker and Cruz, and Tucker's asking him about AIPAC, which isn't a foreign lobby. It's an American lobby, bros.
Well, are you ready for me to fire it up?
Yep, let's go.
All right. Oh, I forgot. We did have some paid chats come in. You want to handle those before we move on?
Yeah, let's do do paid chats. Yeah.
Over on Cash App, we have Jason Kuna, the No White Guilt guy, in for $10. Howdy, Jason. I saw you in the chat tonight. He says, you guys are right. It is indeed like Iraq again. Folk, tithe, and kip. Well, thank you very much, Jason. I deeply appreciate it, brother. And now we will go over to Entropy, where we have Arakeen Green Moon. Good to see you, Arakeen. For $5 Arakeen says, I found the amount of bots suddenly popping up weird. There is a certain behavior, like they were all having blue hair. Fascinating. Are you talking about the Twitter shitstorm of Zioshills? I too have noticed that recently. Have you noticed that, Chris?
I have. Mm-hmm. I have. In fact, I'd like to make a prediction, by the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I predict within a couple of weeks, people who are making comparisons to the Iraq war and saying, right, Iraq is a good reason why we shouldn't invade Iran, will be accused of having, quote, Iraq war brain. I've already had a couple of people say that to me on Twitter. Bro, you've just got Iraq war brain. This is a completely different situation, right? This time democracy will flower in the Middle East, right? And all the wars will end, and so just keep a lookout for that.
So the last one we have before we move on is from our good friend Dawn Browning, always in with her $10 over on PayPal, and she says, "Warning: fake nukes incoming."
It's like the evolution of fake news.
If only we had Martin Webb in the chat. I miss him. All right. Do you want me to play the next clip then?
Next clip, yeah.
All right.
So I've never taken money from the Israel lobby. Have you?
Taken money from the Israel?
From AIPAC.
So AIPAC raises a lot of money for me, but it's actually a misnomer because the people who raise money are individuals. Right. So it's not the PAC itself, but they're individual members who believe in the American-Israeli friendship and relationship.
Is AIPAC a foreign lobby?
No, it's an American lobby. It's the AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively. Listen, I came into Congress 13 years ago with the stated intention of being the leading defender of Israel in the United States Senate.
Right.
And I've worked every day to do that. AIPAC, a lot of times, AIPAC, I wish were much more effective. Like, There are folks online who are in the fever swamp of terrified of AIPAC, and AIPAC.
I'm not terrified of AIPAC at all. You're the one who seems a little uncomfortable when I'm asking.
No, not uncomfortable at all.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
It's
when was the last time AIPAC took a position that deviated from Prime Minister Netanyahu?
All the time.
Name one.
Okay. Let me go back and give a little history. If you want to do a deep dive on AIPAC,
I don't. I want to do a shallow dive that gets. No. I want to get to the core question. AIPAC is lobbying for a foreign government, and I don't. It's not. It's lobbying for the United States.
It is lobbying for a strong U.S.-Israeli relationship.
Okay, and it's not has nothing to do with the foreign government.
It wants America and Israel to be closely allied.
Okay, but it's lobbying on behalf of the interests of another country.
So that's not true at all. And if
it's not true.
No.
How much contact do you think AIPAC leaders have with the government of Israel?
No idea. I imagine some. I think the government of Israel is often frustrated with AIPAC because AIPAC's not nearly strong enough.
Do you think there's any coordination between the government of Israel and AIPAC?
Do they talk? Sure. If you're lobbying
for more U.S.-Mexico trade, would you talk to people in the U.S. and Mexico and the government? Sure. Like if.
So I'm not mad about that. There are a million countries that lobby Washington. I like a lot of those countries, including Israel.
But AIPAC are Americans. They're not Israelis.
Hold on. There are tons of Americans who lobby on behalf of foreign governments. I know them. I'm related to some of them. I know how it works. I'm from here. So my question is not, is it outrageous that foreign governments lobby the United States? They all do, okay, including Israel. My only question is, why don't we admit that is what's happening? You're denying it, but it's true.
Yeah,
and
why aren't they? Is false.
Why aren't they registered as a foreign lobby?
Because they're not.
So Israel is not a foreign country, is it? You're telling me that Israel and America are the same country, Mr. Cruz?
Oh, no,
please make it make sense, Chris. Make it make sense.
They're just lobbying for a closer relationship between the US and Israel, right? That will only benefit the US, obviously, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I just don't think, right, Cruz or anyone else in his position has gotten pushback on this question for ages. And this is one of the weird things about this rush to war, is that it has finally provided a very, very good pretext for people to ask this fundamental question. Are the interests of Israel and the interests of the United States, right, the same, right? And if they are not the same, right, who gets final say on what happens? And this war with Iran is a classic example. It's not really in the interests of the United States to do another Middle Eastern war, like, just for so many reasons. Not only the death and suffering of American soldiers and the death and suffering of destabilizing Iran, but if Trump does this, it is going to absolutely ruin his reputation, right? Yeah. He might be able to get away with, like, just dropping a couple of bombs, right? But if that doesn't work, he's going to look weak, right? I mean,
and again, okay, let me step in here. First, I'll open with a joke. It reminds me of a clip from Tony Soprano from The Sopranos. If the I in AIPAC stood for Italy, we couldn't get away with that shit.
Yeah.
Number two, I would like to point out something. Tucker brought up AIPAC and the people in it having the ear or doing the bidding of Netanyahu. I want you guys to understand how many people important in the Pentagon, in the government, in Congress, in presidential cabinets are Jewish. It's remarkable. It's something like 85 or 90% of everyone in Biden's cabinet and everyone in the Biden admin was Jewish. It's remarkable. You go to any GOP function, so many of the main donors, the people who are connected in the higher ups, people in Congress, the senators, Jewish. Some of them, they aren't Jewish by blood. They weren't even raised Jewish by religion, but they have a rabbi. Biden was an Irish Catholic. He had a rabbi most of his career. Why would that be the case? You tell me. You tell me. Go look at the percentage of people in the federal government, in Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, and in the Pentagon. Even though Jewish people by blood and religion, and counting all Jewish types of people, not the bad ones like I talked about earlier. If you look at all the Jewish people of every kind in America, they maybe make up 0.5%, counting all the illegal immigrants here. If you take away all the illegal immigrants and just count the people we know who are here, Jews of every single kind only make up like 1.5% of the American population. But they're between 37 and 40% of all of the important positions in the American government. Sounds kind of mafioso to me.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be the case. If I was in charge, I would actually put numbers on this and say, okay, 95% of everyone in this has to meet this quota. They have to be heritage Americans. They have to trace their lineage back to this A, B, and C. They have to be this invested. Because if you just open the doors to your entire governing apparatus to foreigners who have religious, racial, and financial interests outside of the people you're supposed to represent, that is unfair, unjust, evil to the people that you are supposed to represent.
And
the
yet,
US is our government is silly with that, especially when it comes to Jews, Israel, Zionists.
Yeah. And the US is supposed to be a Christian country, right? How can you be a Christian country if you're ruled by atheists or ruled by
Psycho-Talmudists?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so This next clip is a masterclass in the anti-Semitism accusation. Cruz tries it on, and Tucker deflects beautifully. Enjoy.
Let me embiggen real quick here.
Tucker, it's a very weird thing.
It didn't embiggen when I clicked it. Hold on. There we go.
You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, like I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the question, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, you seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, like I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the question, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that.
Okay, I let that play twice because I wanted you to get a good look at it. Did you guys understand what just happened there? Take it away, Chris.
Actually, I thought this clip was longer, but Tucker basically says, like, look, you can't just, low-key accuse me of being an anti-Semite like this, right? Which he's clearly trying to do. That's a very, very small clip.
Well, 2 clips came in that look the same. Maybe the next one's longer.
Yeah, right.
Let's try this one.
Okay.
But it's just interesting.
Hold on a second. This one does look longer. Let's see. This one is 2 minutes. And it starts the same, so you might have just accidentally sent the wrong link. So
sorry about that.
Let's let this one play, and this is probably the one you're talking about. Sorry, guys. Bear with us.
Because what you're now describing, in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the question, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions. Which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that.
Well.
Masterful stroke there from Tucker. My God.
Ted Cruz is not Jewish, but I swear to God, it's just like he might as well be wearing a yarmulke right here. It is this absolutely slimy Jewish, constantly subverting and deflecting and accusations. Oh, it's just disgusting watching this decrepit anti-white filth come out of this guy. It's sickening.
You can't cuck the tuck. I mean, it's amazing, right? The words of power are no longer working. And okay, I think this is our second to final clip. This is a very, very important one. where Cruz is basically talking about, you know, being a Christian means supporting Israel. And no, it doesn't, right? Like, at all. This is a very, very complicated topic. And the fact that there are Christian Zionists who believe this is a very, very sorry indication of the state of the West generally.
All right, give me just a second here. I was responding to chat. Is this the one about him using the Bible to justify war?
Yep, this is the one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I lost my place because I had it highlighted, and when I accidentally tapped it, it went away. And I thought that was the one I was on. Okay, give me just a second. I will fire it up.
All right. Yes, I think YouTube just shut down the stream.
What?
People in the YouTube chat are saying that the YouTube stream has stopped. We got shut down.
Did we get showed?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Someone's posted the Rumble link. So yeah, we just got shut down on YouTube. Oh my god. Anyway, that's all finished.
Well, that's fine with me. I don't care. Fuck YouTube. See, like, again, this just proves our point, doesn't it, Chris? This just proves our point. Like, the undue level of influence, intimidation, blackmail that this particular faction of evil Jews has on everything: government, media, social media, banking, money, everything. You're not allowed to say anything about it. You're not even allowed to talk about it. So, again, if it gets shut down on YouTube, oh well, we're going to keep going.
Exclusively on Rumble now, bros.
And Odyssey, don't forget, on Odyssey as well. So here we go. Well. Here's the final clip of the stream.
In Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the.
It's in Genesis, but so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker,
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the descendants
God's
of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
He's the prime minister.
Right.
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
believe
Israel.
That's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
Man, what about that?
I mean, that is just insane, right? This idea, the fundamental core idea of Christian Zionism, that it is the duty of Christians to support Israel, and that once something happens in Israel, all the Jews return to Israel, Jesus will come back. There's so many different variations of this, basically, right?
Anti-Whiteism rots the brain.
Is the fundamental plank of Christian Zionism, and it never gets questioned. And indeed, if it were not for the Israelis pursuing such a horrible course in Gaza, this probably would have remained stable for quite a while. I think when history is written, it will be written in history that it was Netanyahu's actions in Gaza that really broke the whole frame of it, because you can't really sort of maintain the idea that the Israelis are chosen people who never did anything wrong,
right?
Whilst at the same time they're engaging in ethnic cleansing, right? Like, but a lot of it's been leading up to this, right? So there you go. Truly momentous things are happening. It's
like I said at the beginning of the stream, you can see how Judeo-Christianity is this lunatic mind poison. And to borrow again from the Go Free method, mimetic pathogens, anti-white, anti-Western, anti-Christian mimetic pathogens that infect all of us through comic books and video games and media, preachers behind pulpits, politicians on TV. It infects all of us, and we have to purge it. Purge it like the satanic anti-white filth that it is, and reject these monsters, both Jewish and non-Jewish. These evil Zionist cunts, they have to go. They are slime. They are cockroaches that we should crush and make them skitter back into the darkness where they belong.
Bold. I think we've got a couple more super chats, by the way.
We probably do. Give me just a second to refresh here. And I think that we are back on YouTube again. At least it looks that way. So we will see. Jason Kuna in the chat said that it's probably because we full screened it so people could see it. He says that if there's copy claim material that gets full screened without people talking over it, it doesn't count as commentary or something for the algorithm. So it'll shut your stream down, which, again, the anti-white cunts at YouTube, right? Maybe we should say YouTube for this stream. Those anti-white cunts have horrible policies that are anti-American and anti-white. And I hate them. And they need to be crushed and forced to scurry back into the darkness. All right. Ardent Party for $1. I'm sorry, for $2. He says over on Rumble, this is a Rumble rant. He says, here's $2 against the Showiners. The Showiners. Thank you, Ardent. I appreciate that. All right. Let me check Cash App. We have quite a bit over on Entropy. We'll get to that here in a second. Okay, nothing new on Cash App. Let me check PayPal once again. Okay, still just a thing from Dawn over there. No new tips on Subscribestar. So what we'll do is we will round out the paid chats over on Entropy. Starting with the Shade Master, friend of mine, game creator, guy who's been on our stream several times. The Shade Master says for $5, thank you, by the way, I agree with Tony Soprano, and I am offended based on the money that we sent to Israel that the IDF are not on our southern border defending the American people from Mexican cartels. Hey, what a great point that is.
Yeah. I mean, surely they should be, right? Like, why doesn't the IDF send people to fight the cartels?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. How about that? All right. Next up on Entropy, we have from Stumbling. He says, we got Showwood. No, he didn't say that. He said, we lost 6 gorillion viewers on YouTube.
Bruh.
That's pretty good, Stumbling. That's pretty good. I appreciate it, man. Last but not least, we have Paulie B, who we got to meet at the OGC conference this year. Hey, Paulie. How you doing, buddy? Paulie B sends us $25 US. Thank you, Paulie. That's a good donation. He says, Oy vey, shut it down. We all know how cursed Juneteenth is. So just remember, today in 1950... Oh, I've heard this.
Wait, did we lose years? Oh my God. We've been struck. Is the stream still going? Chat, can I have an F in the chat? We lost the, oh my God, bros. No. I don't know how I'm going to be able to shut the stream down. We're going to lose the Lose the last of the super chats. The space lasers got us, bros. Well, I guess I'll wrap up. We're over time. Thank you so much to everyone who super chatted. We'll make sure to read them on the next show. We'll be back next week with some other stuff. Apologies for all of the problems. Yeah, Yiz is completely gone. And thank you very much for coming, everyone. I'll see you later. Although, again, oh no, wait,
it's my fault. It's my fault. I accidentally kicked something, and it moved my connection. We did not get show. That was me accidentally kicking something under the table. I'm very sorry. I was excited. Where was I before that happened? I don't remember. Was I reading Paulie B's chat?
We were doing super chats.
Was it? What had I got to Paulie B yet?
Yeah, you were just introducing Paulie.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I'm excited and animated over here, and I kicked the thing under the table, and for whatever reason that made it lose connection. It shouldn't have, but I lost internet for 3 seconds. I don't know what happened, and it took me a while to get back in. Anyway, the last entropy of the night is from Paulie B. I'll back up and start over. Mr. Paulie B sends us $25 US, and he says, "Oy vey, shut it down. We all know how cursed Juneteenth is, so just remember, today in 1953, Jewish communist traitors got the electric chair. And also, 40 years ago, I was born. I am now a millennial old. God bless you and what you do for our community." Well, welcome to being old with us, Paulie. And yes, we should all celebrate evil traitors and anti-whites of every kind getting what's coming to them. I think that is fair and just what happened to them. So I will, since we had a little interruption, let me make sure that interruption didn't make me miss any other paid chats that came in. I'll refresh again before we get out of here. Okay, nothing there. And let me make sure we didn't miss anything on Cash App. No, we didn't. We're good. So anyway, sorry about that little hiccup there at the end. We in fact did not get show it a third time. That was my mistake. All right. Anyway, I hope you all will be inspired by what you heard here tonight to speak the truth and don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Speak the truth, but speak it wisely. That's why I encourage you to learn from Jason Kuna, learn from the Go Free book. You have to know how to talk if you want people to listen and respond well, but you have to not be afraid to speak the truth. It's very important. And also, don't back down. Don't be intimidated by the government and the Zio shills. Tell them no. As soon as we all just put our foot down and say no more anti-whiteism, and we all unify that way, this shit will stop. This shit will stop if we put our foot down. So just that's all I have to say about this. Speak the truth and don't let the Zio shills win. Don't let them win.
Thanks for coming, everyone. We'll see you again next week.
Yep, we'll both be back Monday, and I hope you all have a great weekend. And I'm sorry it got a little rocky there at the end, but I think it ended up pretty good. So good night, everybody. Have a great weekend. Everyone. And hopefully we don't get nuked before Monday. Good night.
Bye.